Hello and welcome to the Two Dudes Movie Podcast. This week we'll be doing a post-view of Wandavision Episode 5, and boy did things start to move quickly. So here we are again, 5 weeks in, 4 weeks in technically? Because 2 episodes.
4 weeks in.
And we're moving. There are spoilers in this episode. Just go away.
Don't even try because we can't help
spoilers. So
we didn't think we'd be back.
Come back. Don't go away and stay away. But also, I don't want
watch
it
the
spoiled
episode
for you.
and then come back.
It's so good. It will only be good if you care, and if you care, you've already watched it. But if not, if you don't care about spoilers, listen, and I will convince you. I will convince you why this show is a must-watch.
You say that. You say you'll only care if you actually care about it, but actually, we'll get into what I'm going to talk about later with it. But I knew a lot more than my girlfriend did, and she still loved it. And then I explained it to her.
Okay. So
hang on. Before we start, we didn't think we'd be back this week.
Yeah, so we had a little discussion, and were like, well, if nothing really big happened, so episode 3, nothing really big happened, so we were like, well, maybe we can just stave off a week and do something else.
And do 2 in 1 week like the first time.
Yeah, that didn't happen.
God no.
Because this is the biggest thing ever to happen to the MCU. And
I'd honestly say,
return of Evan Peters as Quicksilver from the X-Men universe as Pietro.
Yeah.
Now, we will get to him.
Recast Pietro.
We are going to come back to him later. We're going to talk about some other things, but obviously the bulk of this episode will be dedicated to that enormous spoiler. What I will say is, frustratingly for me, I saw on Twitter an article, because someone had just tweeted it, that talked about his return because apparently the voice dubber, from him in a different language was like, oh, I'm excited to be back as Pietro. Finally, because he dubs all of Evan Peters' Quicksilver lines. Anyway, so that happened, and that was before... Was it before the 3rd episode even?
Probably would have been, yeah.
Because
I remember you saying you'd seen a spoiler, and well done for keeping that. I had no idea.
That so rigorously, and I didn't even know the level of the spoiler.
No, I had no idea. Obviously, there'd been rumours before the series started that he'd be appearing.
And the running theory was Evan Peters being Mephisto, which I think we'll touch on that later. But I was pretty convinced that since I heard Evan Peters was on set, given this is a multiverse show, they would be foolish, lazy, if you will, not to bring him back as Quicksilver. But I would like to take a moment of silence, and I really find this, I just found this so funny. I watched it, was in shock, even though I knew it was happening, and then started laughing because, what did Aaron Taylor Johnson do? Who did he kill? You know what I mean? Because he was killed off in one movie, and even when they bring the brother back, they rather than bringing one back from death, they bring it from an alternate universe.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure this is to do with the in-universe thing they talk about of death. But I just was like, oh, that poor man. All he's going to be asked for the rest of his life is when he comes back as Quicksilver. And I bet no one's asked him.
But I think the thing is that when it first came out, when Age of Ultron first came out, obviously it's very much alongside Evan Peters' X-Men version of Quicksilver. Yeah, it was all very much he's so much better in X-Men than he is in Marvel, because he wasn't the main focus of Marvel. I
don't know.
I think his portrayal of Pietro Maximoff was better than Evan Peters, but Evan Peters' portrayal of Quicksilver was better.
We'll come back to him later. One more thing I wanted to say this week on Twitter is, if one more person shares something that someone said 5 years ago as is like, oh, this was confirmation WandaVision was in development. So there's an interview that Elizabeth Olsen and Aaron Taylor Johnson are doing for Age of Ultron, and someone goes, what's your favourite Wanda comic? And she goes, House of M. and talks a bit about it, and literally says they'd never make it though because it's too dark for Marvel with everything Marvel's doing, and but I really like Wanda to go like mad and crazy. She'd really find that fun, and everyone on Twitter is like, oh my god, WandaVision confirmed in 2015, and I'm like, no, it wasn't. It's a coincidence. Also, it's the only interesting Scarlet Witch comic.
Yeah.
The best and the biggest, and it is cool and epic, and please, I am just so tired of seeing, oh, this was hinted at years ago. It wasn't.
Yeah.
This was not please, not
I thought you were going to moan
everything is a
about
hint.
people sharing leaked images and stuff.
Also another thing on Twitter this week is if I go on Twitter at, I don't know, 9 a.m. again and see someone say, just posting pictures of Quicksilver onto their timeline, just because you put -- spoiler doesn't mean I can't see your picture.
Yeah.
Because if I try and scroll past it, I can still see quite clearly what it is. So just stop. Just don't post it.
You see,
and if you're going to, tag it #WandaVision spoilers so it won't appear on people's timelines. I don't have it muted because I'm somewhat curious, but it frustrates me that when I'm
fighting
not
these people.
but when I'm not looking for it, it just appears. Just stop.
I think the issue is here, James, is that it's on Twitter and not anywhere else. I don't use Twitter, and I've never seen any of them. So.
Well, anyway, I'm upset. Anyway, so back to this episode. It's not AIM. So I spent 10 minutes saying it's AIM, and you might disagree, but it's not AIM.
I disagree.
I strongly believe it's not AIM, and I think I read too much into hexagons on a table, and I think what frustrates me most is I think, and they touched on it, but I think hexagon is just a pun. I think it's just a pun for a different name for a spell. It's a hex. I think that's it. Yeah. And it's just, I was...
You were quite devastated. For once you were wrong, but I do think it still could be some nefarious plot behind it, because what were they doing with this Vision's body? They weren't just looking after it. I reckon that's sparked the whole thing. I think Wanda only went there to retrieve Vision's body to stop them from turning it into a weapon.
Maybe not a weapon, but they were definitely trying to do something with it.
And I think that's the only reason why they did it. And I think Monica Rambeau will stumble upon the reason why. And then we'll get into it, sort of thing. Yeah,
unless that is why it's all a hexagon, because this image has been planted in her mind. She's seen it somewhere, and it's hinting to the rest of the world. But boy, did Wanda! Oh, that was cool.
She's properly gone into "do not mess with me" mode.
I think
I didn't expect it to come through. I honestly didn't expect it to come through. I just thought she was going to throw the thing through, and then she just walked out. I was like.
It was Vision or Wanda, and it was Wanda, and I'm so happy. I am so intrigued because this show keeps giving you so much information, and yet we don't know anything more.
Yeah, I wonder what she did to the field, to the outside of it.
Yeah, I want to know what effect that was, but I also want to know. So she's saying that everyone's happy in this town and stuff.
Yeah.
Which is odd. It's just it all seems odd and fractured because like they're clearly captured, but she's also like, so what? But then the next thing is we see Agnes reacting and being like, do you want me to take it again? So they're aware she's the power player here.
Yeah.
But there's something else which is very odd that Vision says right near the end of the episode, that there are no children. And we talked about it earlier as if in a previous episode of it being maybe Wanda, that someone's trying to make Wanda have kids because they keep referencing the kids. And I thought, given how sadistic and dark the show got with Vision's body, what if the children are being kept somewhere? That's why there's no children in the town. They're being held hostage or captive because she can't or isn't willing to manipulate them.
Maybe. And that's why she gets so upset when her actual kids manipulate themselves.
Yeah.
Well, that's not an interesting theory. I really like that. I do have one question for you, and I think, honestly, when I ask the question, I'll also say my answer to it.
Yeah.
Do you still believe Wanda is completely the only person in control of this? Because, personally, she says something in the argument, which is, I don't know how all this started. I actually think... I don't think she's been manipulated into it. I think it's still very much her control, her doing. But I do feel like something is behind her. Not pulling the strings, but influencing her. And I don't know if that's Agnes or Mephisto or anything like that. Because, like, when Pietro turns up, she says, "I didn't do that." We know she has complete control over this. We know she's like, "Well, like, what do you think I'm doing? Making sure they get into their dentist appointments on time." I don't think she is, but someone is.
I think I'm torn. I think at this point, this episode made me think there is no one else in control, but she's losing a grip. Yeah. We see several instances. So Agnes is suddenly like, "Do you want me to take that again?" Rather than just doing it. She questions. It's almost as if Wanda's lost her grip. We saw Vision break Norm out of it. We see something interesting with the twins, which I'll touch on in a second. But we see Wanda losing a grip, and I wonder if potentially the becoming red of the hex, something like that, is what's ripped open the multiverse. This is Pietro, I am in no doubt, from the X-Men universe, under her spell, under her influence, who thinks he's now part of this sitcom thing, but will eventually break out and discover that he's not.
You actually think that's actually that X-Men version of him?
Yes, I believe it is, and I believe that is the only reason you would do it with that actor. You could have recast him to anyone. Yeah. You've done it because you are making
that he's also recognisable as Quicksilver.
Yes. I think it might be, she says she doesn't know how this started, a nightmare gone wrong. Something to that effect. I'm not certain.
Well, that's the thing.
But I just feel the way she stormed out of that, the way she threatens everyone. Yes, maybe she's on some sort of illusion, but to what extent, I don't know anymore. I thought Agnes was running this thing. Her character's still interesting, has no ID next to her name on the board. But
she's also the only person who directly interacts with them when they're using their powers and is very much unfazed by it. Now, that could very much just be because Wanda's there, she's controlling them. But I think because Vision's there, and
we've also never seen them use their powers in front of anyone else.
No, but I think Vision is a really interesting player in all this because there's that moment. So she's obviously manifested him. She's obviously made him back alive, because we see that that's just the way that obviously it's been playing out. But she doesn't control him. Why?
I think.
Why doesn't she control him?
I don't think. So there's something interesting, and this is what I wanted to touch on with the twins. We talked about this in episode 3. A stalk is manifested, and she has no ability to remove it. The reason I believe that stalk exists is because little twinny with Wanda powers, I can't remember which one's which, Wiccan, has the powers and manifested the stalk, and that is why she could not get rid of it, because Wiccan created it.
That's what I think,
I think this episode you see them, taking control of their aging. Also, I was right, they're aging up fast. Called it. Yeah. I'm very impressed they kept all this out of the trailers. Incredibly impressed. Yeah. And I think it's somewhat distracting in the episodes now to see stuff happen and be like, how did we not know this was going to happen?
Yeah. We've just got to accept that Marvel do not show us anything.
Yeah. But I think she doesn't have control over the twins. We see that. She cannot make them do something. She cannot make them fall asleep.
No.
I think Vision, and I think that's because they are potentially parts of Mephisto's soul, something to do with that. They're not in her illusion. They are separate entities.
It's also like how they are very much aware of the day it is. Like, there's that moment where she's like, oh, have you gone to work? Well, it's a Saturday. But it's, no, it's Monday. No, it was Saturday this morning. And it's like, I think they are very much separated from... They are inhabiting the world, but they're not controlled by Wanda. Like,
I think that's another example of her losing her grip, though. People are noticing these differences. Yes, for twins, but more than just that. It was an interesting thing where they made a point of saying you can't change death.
Yeah,
I think that's the justification for using X-Men Quicksilver.
Mm-hmm.
But I do find it very, very interesting that Vision was dead.
Yeah,
he wasn't knocked out or unconscious. He was dead as far as we're concerned. Maybe robots play by different rules.
Yeah.
So unless in the same way the twins have created life from somebody to Mephisto, he has brought back Vision.
Yeah.
Which is why he's able to be alive, because you can't, again, cheat death. I like the rule, however, that they set up that you cannot cheat death. And I
but then cheat it on 3 occasions.
How?
because they cheated by bringing back Vision and bringing back Pietro.
No, as in you cannot just bring a character back to life. You cannot bring a person who is dead back to life. I think establishing that makes it clear that Wanda does not have infinite power, and I think in a universe that's expanding and spiraling, stakes are important. And if every time someone dies, they just call it Wanda and say, "Wanda, can you bring this person back to life?" All the stakes are gone.
Well,
so
I think
Vision is back somehow.
Yeah, I think that's also that conversation. That conversation was really, really interesting between her and the kids as well, because I think that conversation very much could be the overall arc of this entire series. Yeah. There's been theories put out there that the series is just Wanda going through the stages of grief. And that would be completely believable, because eventually she'd get to acceptance, which is when the series will end. But this idea of just sort of like her, she just turned to the kids and went, "No, you can't. We can't do that." And you could almost see in her eyes that both, well, I've done that with Vision, and but what if I can do that? Yeah. And at that moment, I remember turning to my girlfriend and saying, "This is when," like, I went, "They're going to bring back Quicksilver." I think it was at that moment I went, "They're bringing back Quicksilver this episode." Yeah. Because that's when I was like, "No,
episode.
There."
Until I saw the spoilers this morning.
But it was really. Oh, it was so good how they've set it up, and I think actually one of the things that I liked about this episode, that obviously they've not done any of the previous ones, because we've now got the glimpse into the outside world, they're able to dip in and out.
Yes.
And the dipping out of just seeing Monica and just basically asking the same questions we are, and going through the same thing, and making the same connections that we are. Like, but that's more power than she's ever shown in any other movie. And they were talking about Thanos and talking about Captain Marvel. It's interesting as a character thing. It's interesting that Monica obviously has something against, or it's a nerve that they've been hit with Captain Marvel. Also got the fact that the X-ray comes back as completely light. I reckon that's her having photon powers.
I think it is. I think you're 100% right. I think another thing is that I think the issue with Captain Marvel, and I think this is, we've not seen anything else, so how would we know? I think she's upset because Captain Marvel came back but didn't save her mum. Yeah. She came back to save the world, but her mum wasn't worth the time, or she wasn't worth the time. She hasn't seen her either. Yeah. She was blipped, but now she's back, and Captain Marvel didn't pop over to say hi for tea. And I think it's more just a bit of bitterness in this. This person exists. This person was a huge part of your life. Went off to space for 20, 30 years even. Unless
they came back in between, we don't know. Obviously, what might happen in the second one, but
yeah, I do. But what I think is important is I don't think they have seen Captain Marvel since that night she left, and I think she was such a huge part of their lives. I think she's probably just a bit upset that like her mum must have had a funeral and stuff. Was Captain Marvel there? No, she was off in space doing space things. Yeah. Selfish.
But no, it was a really interesting thing. I do like the idea. Now, here's something that I think actually plays into something we discussed last time. So last time we discussed whether or not Vision, when it came out, would still be alive.
Yeah.
The Kevlar pants.
Yes.
I think that's proof that he will be.
I think it's not. I think if Wanda cannot create life, something else is at play there. I don't think that he won't be alive. I think Vision comes back alive at the end of this series, based on what we're seeing so far.
But I reckon, I honestly do believe, I don't think they're going to make Wanda realise it. I still think Wanda's going to come out of this as the villain, because of the way that she's turned, because especially during that confrontation with Sword, she's hurting, she's grieving, of course she is, but she's gone over the edge. I think she'll be the villain of
Doctor Strange.
Doctor Strange, but there is definitely something there that has created her like this. That's probed that idea in her head. That's made her turn on people who she probably trusted. It might have actually, but then it could. I completely agree that it could have been whatever Sword were doing to Vision. Mm-hmm. That could have, because she was grieving. She was already really upset, and then to find out that her husband, as she calls him, was being experimented on and turned into a machine, a weapon, is gonna tip you over the edge.
Yeah.
But yeah, I want to know what the hell that's done to the Hex. I think honestly, my best theory on what that might have done is made it impossible to go that way. Like, you can probably come out of it, we can't go into it.
Maybe. I'm interested to see. So we talked about just briefly Monica having photon powers, and the Captain Marvel vaguely similar powers. Not Captain Marvel. Yeah, but Monica has photon powers, which are vaguely similar to Captain Marvel's, which is what you said the reason the X-ray was blank. And I wonder if the X-ray was blank for a different reason, to do with her being manifested in some form. We saw that Monica's clothes, the material was the same. It's Kevlar.
Yeah.
But it's not Kevlar anymore. She's changed reality, and I wonder if Monica's reality has been physically changed.
So that's the thing. I think that Wanda has, by interacting with the Hex and with Wanda, it's given her mutant abilities. It's mutated her.
Potentially,
it's
something like that.
It's changed her reality. And I think, honestly, that would be a really good way, because it could be a case of... So it's been said that there's thousands of people in this series. In this,
I see where you're going.
They're the mutants. They're going to be the mutants. And you're going to have things like... Captain. So it's not going to be no more mutants. It's just that the Hex is going to disappear, and all these people are suddenly going to have powers. You're going to have the likes of, maybe not Wolverine, but like you're going to have the likes of maybe one of the kids or maybe all the kids who you're saying have got trapped away. Maybe they all become the mutants. So you have the likes of Professor Xavier and people like that who just suddenly have these mutant powers because they've been inside that town.
Is a brilliant idea,
and maybe that's where the X mansion gets built.
I don't like it.
Hex marks
as much as it's limited to the people in it.
Yeah, because
then you can't have global mutants as it is. But I like the idea that something to do with his Hex is what turns people into mutants.
Well, okay,
it could spread around the world or something.
Exactly.
Like that.
Here's where maybe mutants and Inhumans join together in a weird way. Is that what if the Hex, the way they get rid of it is it basically explodes.
Yeah.
No one dies, but the energy from the Hex gets so much for Wanda she can't control it. It implodes, it goes everywhere. And that's how people like Ms. Marvel gets there, because that just sort of goes across the globe, and it just 1 in 10 people, 1 in 20, 30, whatever it ends up being, get these mutant abilities because of it. I think that's probably the best way of doing it, because it's like cosmic radiation, it's from the Big Bang.
Yeah.
That's the best way of doing it, I think.
So, to move on to the biggest reveal of this episode is Quicksilver. Now, to do a little rundown for those of you that don't know or are a bit confused, I will give you both the in-universe and external universe explanations. So, I will give you the external universe first. Disney owns Marvel Studios, which owns a series of comics. The Marvel licenses are split across various different licensees who held at various points in history the rights to different Marvel properties. So, for example, 20th Century Fox held the rights to the X-Men, to Daredevil, to the Fantastic Four. Universal held the rights to a Hulk movie and still do, which is why they cannot make a Hulk solo film of any sort. And since in the recent years we've seen these rights revert. So the Daredevil rights reverted, which Marvel promptly made a deal with Netflix to make those into TV shows. They have also now since reverted. The Fantastic Four X-Men rights were never going to revert. Deadpool also in that, because basically as long as Fox made a movie every few years, which is why we had a Fantastic Four movie then it was rushed to be released, because it had to be for them to keep the rights. When Disney bought 20th Century Fox, that all changed, and pretty much every property that Marvel didn't have or was never going to get back came home. Sony and Spider-Man is a different situation, where Sony, to my understanding, owns part of the character of Spider-Man, and so will never, unless Marvel buy them out effectively. They own part of the Spider-Man brand, and therefore that's why Marvel couldn't use any of the characters, and so they made a specific deal, which has just been renewed, to release Spider-Man movies. Which is why we have Venom and Morbius, which are non-MCU Spider-Man movies.
But we'll be linking to the Spider-Man universe.
Yes, and maybe they'll be folded into this multiverse thing. We don't know yet.
Yeah.
But Fox is different. They were never going to get them back. They bought them out, and now they have all the X-Men, all the Fantastic Four are home.
But I want to say this one thing. We didn't expect that to be coming to fruition for a good number of years. Kevin Feige, I believe, even said it will be a long time before we see mutants in the MCU. So to see, obviously, Fantastic Four was announced not so long ago.
So the timeline of events is we had an announcement for Phase 4 just around the time of the 20th Century Fox deal went through, and there was a mention of the word Fantastic Four and mutants. Since that, they have announced at the Disney Investors Day, I believe it was, they announced a Fantastic Four movie directed by John Watts. And very recently, in the past few weeks, maybe months, Feige did an interview in which he stated that the mutants are on the timeline, but they're not going to be appearing in the universe for a while yet.
I think that's solo adventures, though, but that doesn't mean that they're not going to be in... Cause
I think you're correct. I think that what that means, what he's referring to, is the X-Men, the Wolverine and Professor X. I think Quicksilver is here. He is an X-Man, and I would be shocked if this is not the exact same Quicksilver that was in the X-Men universe. Yeah. He's featured in for all the movies from Days of Future Past onwards. He is an excellent character, and I'm very happy to see him in this universe.
Now, I want to talk about that reveal, though, because that reveal for me was a iconic 80s way of doing it.
Yes.
It was the ring of the doorbell in the middle of a heated moment, which completely breaks tension and makes everything flip on its head. If you watch any 80s sitcoms or TV shows, that's just how it happens. It's how it works. The reactions, honestly, I'd say every episode, I have to applaud the acting of Paul Bettany and Elizabeth Olsen. My God, Paul Bettany is amazing, and he surprised me every single episode, even though I always sing his praises. And Elizabeth Olsen, in that moment, it was oh my God, like her, you could see it in her face who it was. I think everyone sort of knew who it was going to be, but you could see it in her face who that person was. But she still didn't recognise him.
Elizabeth Olsen is incredible, but I want to give a special shout out this episode to Paul Bettany for making the worst haircut in the world. And not...
It's not as bad as Hawkeye's.
Episode. It's not as bad as what?
Hawkeye's.
Yes, it is. It's
no,
worse.
It's not.
It is the worst thing a man or woman or anyone could do to their hair. It is a disgrace, and whoever put that monstrosity on Paul Bettany's head we're gonna have words. Okay.
I do have to say one thing, completely unrelated but also hilarious, and I wanted to shout it out, was the intro where they showed the baby pictures of Paul Bettany's Vision. That was hilarious.
I'll tell you what else I liked about the intro. Now I've remembered, you've just mentioned it, is it actually says the words "we're making this up" as we go along. And I thought that was a fascinating thing of again an example of the world is breaking down.
Yeah.
Wanda's losing a grip, and I think, interestingly, as we head closer to the modern day, that is as Wanda they kept asking why did it change time period, and I think it has something to do with
her departure from reality. Not her departure,
but her grip, her lack of grip on the situation.
No, but as in, so the less grip she has, the closer to reality it gets.
The closer to reality it becomes, and I think it's very meta and very fantastic, and this show is just done so incredibly well. Back to Quicksilver, you're right, she doesn't recognise him. I think that's important, and I am enraged at Marvel, who thought, what we'll do is we'll make this the end of an episode. I'm like, no.
You gotta wait another week to find out what's going to happen there. Also, what's with the popsicle? Love it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I did enjoy about it? And here's a good connection that I didn't actually pick up on at the time, but I think is also really important to why it was that version of Pietro.
It's because of the 80s.
Because it's the 80s, which is when he appears in X-Men.
Yes.
And so it makes entire sense because that was his character in the 80s.
I think...
Are they going to recast him every episode into different...
I hope not, but I kind of am fascinated by the idea that maybe he's just walked through a door, or he in this... it's hard to explain, but I like the idea that this is the X-Men universe. That's
because he was in a suburb, weren't he? Their family lived in a suburb.
In a suburb. So maybe he's come to visit his sister Wanda.
So maybe because of the fact that his sister Wanda was a little girl when he was that age. Mm-hmm. So maybe he...
No, she's a little girl in the first one, so she would potentially be this age 20 years later.
But maybe he doesn't necessarily recognise... Like, maybe...
He does.
Because she doesn't recognise him because it's a different Pietro. But what if she's not a different Scarlet? What if she's not different Wanda?
That's what I mean. I think the universe she has created is the X-Men universe, potentially.
Does that mean Wanda's responsible for Dark Phoenix? God damn it.
But I like the idea that this is that universe. They've made a pocket door to that world. It doesn't quite track with the people who are all real people, so they all have people they're supposed to be. But I am very excited to see where this goes. I think
honestly,
Marvel has pulled an absolute blinder.
It's just every episode we seem to go, okay, it could go this way, it could go... Like, we have 10, 15 theories that you can see online of where it could go next. And it never is one of them.
Yeah, it's always something that you're just not quite expecting. You think it could happen, but that's not what your money's on. And it pushes you and pulls you. I'm pretty sure everyone who was interested in this, who knew about Marvel lore, who knew about the appearance of Evan Peters, could be in this. Yeah.
We all sort of went, this is what's going to happen, this is how it could happen. But even though we expected him to appear, they still managed to subvert expectations and do it again. And it was perfect. I honestly can't fault it.
Yeah.
In fact, the entire episode, I think this is my favourite episode.
There are 4 episodes left. Potentially a hidden 5th, which I don't particularly believe. So this series has a lot of
twists and turns.
Of twists yet to see. I think we're probably down to... I said this in like episode 2 or 3 maybe, but we'd seen most of the shots in the trailer. I think there are probably... I could probably count on one hand the number of clips that we have now not seen.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I can think of only 2, which is both Vision related. Both Vision going towards the wall at the edge of the Hex, and Vision talking to Monica in the car, outside of a car.
Oh yeah, we've got... No, to be fair, there's more. I forgot the Halloween episode. So hopefully
the Halloween episode, yeah.
Should be the Halloween episode, because...
That would make sense.
It makes sense in the context that Vision is... I just had a thought. That Vision is revealing himself in the street. But are the twins going to wear their comic costumes?
Oh, I hope so.
Along with Wanda and Vision, which would be even
as
more
well as
interesting.
Quicksilver.
As well as Quicksilver. Oh my gosh. But will Quicksilver be dressed up as this universe's, the MCU Quicksilver,
or the giant silver jacket?
or okay, this is my final.
No, it's gonna be comic
prediction.
one, because that's what everyone else's is.
Is he gonna wear the one from his universe, and she'll look at him like he's an idiot, and make him put the comic one on?
I have a feeling. Now, I also have a feeling in terms of the kids. I have a feeling they will see Wanda and Pietro using their powers and take those for themselves.
No, they've already got the powers. They've got the powers.
Yeah, I know, but they'll sort of reveal it in that episode.
Maybe. Because they've already got their powers, though.
I don't think...
They must.
But it's not been shown that they've already got their powers.
Yeah, it has. Wiccan in the manifest for butterflies, manifest for Stork, and they talk about having weird feelings. Yeah, but not like
the same way as Wanda has.
We haven't seen them use it, but
yeah,
I think we will. Okay. Thank you very much for tuning in this week. Come back next week, as we will almost certainly be discussing more WandaVision, and also have a look around our channel, as you will see our new series, Stuck in the Elevator Pitch. Find us on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter. You can follow us on all the podcast platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and the like. Leave a comment down below, like the video, and let us know what you thought of the episode. See you next time, guys.
See you soon.